Hello everyone. Today we have with us Ankur. He's a 2008 Indian champion in the butterfly. Held the record in the 100-meter butterfly. And here we have with us Ankur today. Hi Ankur.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
How are you doing?
Doing great. Another sunny day in California, and life is good. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. It's almost night, I guess, at California. So it's a day night, talking with you. So let's jump in to the questions right away. So,
Sure.
as you already have participated at the 2008 Beijing Games, so I guess it was a significant Olympics for you and as well as the swimming fraternity because, Michael Phelps was on the rise and, he made swimming a far more popular sport than it was previously. So, uh, how was the experience at the 2008 Beijing Games, and what are the three most important things you feel uh, that were important in shaping you for the Olympics?
For sure. Well, I'll answer the first question. The Beijing Games, the 2008 Beijing Games, was truly a moment in history, both for swimming as a sport, but also the world at large. This was in many ways China's coming out party, right? They were kind of opening their gates to the world. Obviously, it was filled with all kinds of controversy as well, but it was the first glimpse that many folks kind of publicly got into the country. Being a international relations student, I actually studied Mandarin Chinese in college. So it was actually quite fun for me to go to the country for the language that I was studying and locals, the volunteers in the village, and going out into the city and the streets and everything like that. Obviously, Beijing was very well prepared. It was very well organized inside the city. I didn't get to leave the city that time, but in the future, as a professional, I've seen some of the rest of China. It's always been very fascinating. To be sitting in the stands and watching what happened in the pool was mind-boggling. Some of the performances, Michael Phelps, of course, right? It was his big games, but in addition to that, we really have to talk about some of the other performers that just showed up and did unbelievable things. I could name names forever, but I would suggest maybe just going and Googling it because the amount of records that were set. And I learned a lot. I am already working with one of the elite coaches, thank goodness. And so he prepared me, but you don't know what it's like to be under pressure, I guess, for the real thing until you see the real thing unfold in front of you. And so to watch the way all these top athletes handle the Olympics, their energy, their bodies, their support, right? A lot of them had a lot of support, sports psychologists and coaches and stuff around them, I think was very important for some of these top level swimmers. The United States and Australia, of course, come very well prepared with all kinds of support staff into the games. So yeah, it was fun. And of course, the opportunity to meet so many people also on the Indian team. I became really good friends with Rehan Poncha, and we remain close friends to this day. Whenever I come back to India, I get to see him, and it's a lot of fun. And the other athletes, somehow or another, wherever I go in the world, there's an athlete connection now. So I have someone that I either met in Beijing or know through the swimming community that I can go and visit, see what life is like for someone in another place, and it's cool. So yeah, lots of great stuff. In terms of the three things that I think were very important for preparing me for Beijing or the Olympics, one is an excellently strong relationship with my coach. There are a lot of great coaches out there. We live in an era where there's a lot of information available, and coaches have a lot of resources at their disposal to be excellent. There are some excellent Indian coaches, as we have seen, performances are progressing, which is awesome, right? And beyond the metrics or the measurable game plan, it's whether or not you have a working relationship with the coach. And thankfully, I was in a position where I had a very healthy, positive relationship with mine. And I think that was probably number one. When you're a teenager or you're in your early 20s, life can throw curveballs at you. Things are changing around you. You may be starting to live alone. You may have, personal life challenges, family challenges, those kinds of things. But the training has to happen in spite of those ups and downs in your personal life, right? And I think consistency was probably number two. So relationship was number one. Consistency is number two. It's Coach Salo had a rule of like, if you have taken a break for more than 48 hours, we have to start over. Like you're out of shape.
Yeah.
So it was a bit extreme, but I think he said it so that we would, stay on top of it. But, the idea is that you're looking at a 4-year cycle. Every year represents a certain type of development that you have to do in order to reach your peak for the Olympics, right? Some years are about strength, some years are about endurance, some years are about speed. And within the year, every single quarter of the year, or every single season within the year can represent some kind of focus that you have to maintain as well. And so it can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming to go from a junior level swimmer to trying to solve every single problem at once and say, okay, I must resolve everything so that I can make it to the next nationals or to the next qualifier or to the next Olympics. But to figure out how to break it down into pieces and have patience with yourself to say, I have to improve a couple pieces at a time. The rest will come, I think is a really important skill to have for your mental health as well. Otherwise, you can get overwhelmed. So I'd say that's probably number two.
No, you are done with three, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you emphasized on points like pressure, handling the pressure at the Olympic Games. So why don't I jump into this question? Like you had cuts for both 100-meter butterfly event as well as the 50-meter freestyle. So why did you, opt out of the 50 freestyle event? Is there any reason, or do you just want to concentrate on the 100-meter butterfly event?
I mean, the answer is simple. The 50 free was either before or after the 100 fly, like right after.
Oh.
And I'm not Michael Phelps. I'm not able to recover as quickly as him. So I had to choose one because they were too close together.
Okay. So you did, a bit about your education. So you decided to join SOCA and train under Coach Salo. So why did you opt for like a small university, like a liberal arts education, instead of going to a in-state institution, because you had Ohio State, which has also a amazing training like swimming program. So why did you choose SOCA over Ohio State at that point of time?
So there were two factors that played into my decision. The first is educationally, I wanted to go to a place where the teachers had the opportunity to really concentrate on each student. I don't learn well in large classes. I just don't. I have to have a strong relationship with my teachers and coaches. And so SOCA being a small university, the entire student body is 400 students, whereas at Ohio State, I think it's tens of thousands of students, right? No, excuse me, not that everyone is doing the exact same thing, of course, but in a single classroom, it's not uncommon to find 100, 200 students sitting there with you at Ohio State. Whereas at SOCA University, it would be 10, 15 students in a classroom, right? So that played a big role. The professors themselves were fantastic. They were handpicked from universities and educational programs all over the world to come to this university, and they believed very strongly in the idea of SOCA education and the culture and nurturing students carefully. And the third is the swim coach himself, Coach Dave Salo. there is a short list of coaches in the world who consistently produce Olympic athletes. You know, and in that club, you know, there's names like Eddie Reese, Mike Bottom, um, Bob Bowman, of course, you know, as we all know. One of those names is Dave Salo. And Coach Salo didn't belong to a large university at the time, but he did become head coach at Soka University. And he invited me out to see the university, get to know the program, and actually get to know him. And one thing that he demonstrated more than any other coach that I met the Ohio State coach. He was actually very interested in having me part of the program, as well as some of the other schools in the area. But one thing that Coach Salo demonstrated more than any other coach is belief. The other coaches would identify where I fit into the program and say, okay, you're kind of at the bottom of the heap. We can maybe place you in a couple of local competitions or dual meets. We don't think you're going to qualify for the national championship. So that's where you'll be. Do you want to train here? Right? Whereas with Coach Salo, he immediately started talking to me about what it's going to take for me to break the world record in the 200 backstroke. And, you know, I had to remind him that I was not even a national champion or qualifier or anything. Why are we talking about world records? And he just very casually said, I'm going to believe in you until you prove me wrong. And it was at that moment that I saw there's a reason why this man consistently produces Olympians. I have one life to live at the moment, and I just want to make the most of it. I will always regret not trying to go to the Olympics, and I feel that this man is the one to take me there. So that's why I went with him.
So like post admissions to Soka, you transferred to University of Southern California to join the Trojan community. So along with like Coach Salo. So when and how did you come to this conclusion or draw this conclusion?
So Coach Salo actually graduated from University of Southern California himself. So he is a USC alumnus. And so he studied exercise physiology and biokinesiology there. He has a very science-driven approach to his training, which is part of why I work with him. So when the head coaching job at USC opened, he interviewed for it and he got it. And I had to make a decision at that point. At Soka University, it was unknown who would be the head coach in Salo's place. I had built an excellent relationship with him. He really helped me develop. Not just physically, but also mentally, tremendously as an athlete. His expectations of me were very high, but they came from a place of care. He really believed that I could do it. And as as I'd mentioned before in talking to other coaches around the country at other university programs, I didn't get that sense from others. So I did reach out to some other programs saying, hey, Coach Salo is leaving. I need to find another university because I may not have a coach next year, right? And again, the response I got was kind of like, well, you're not that fast. So just, yeah, you can join us if you want. You'll have to get in on your own, right? And at the time, my performances were not great. I truly couldn't qualify even for a national championship at that time. So forget about making the Olympics. It took 3 years of working with Salo to get to the world level. And I developed very gradually towards that. It was not overnight. So Salo was very helpful in, helping me make my decision. And I transferred up to University of Southern California. I knew that he was still the man that was going to get me to the Olympics. That was top priority for me, so I went with him. There was a certain sacrifice. It's a bigger school, so I had to deal with larger classes, a little bit more impersonal nature of the university education side. But then again, the benefit was there are more people, so I made quite a few friends there as well. So, pros and cons of moving to a bigger school.
Okay.
Do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Keep my head up when I act, head up, that's a fact. Never looking back, I'ma keep myself on
So,
track.
like,
Keep my head up,
now that
staying
you are
strong.
not associated into competitive swimming anymore, so, like, do you think that the decision that you made 15 years back was a conscious decision? And do you, at any point of time, do you regret, I should have stayed back at Soka? Because ultimately, now that I am not swimming, it didn't really make a lot of, impact or change, uh, kind of things like that.
Hmm. The great news with Soka is it's only 1 hour away from where USC was. And so the biggest thing about Soka is the family, meaning the other students.
Yeah.
And I maintained really strong relationships. Some of my best friends are graduates of Soka also. Many of them were coming from India as well. And so they're back in India now, doing some incredible things for their communities. So I still maintain a relationship with the professors. I can go anytime. I can go to their office hours. I can sit in on the classes. The students, the alumni, I have participated in, helping new students get oriented there. I'm an advisor to their documentary filmmaking program now. So the relationship is still strong. Thankfully, I didn't lose anything by walking away. I gained a lot by staying with Coach Salo, going to USC. And I think I also learned some hard lessons. It's moving to Los Angeles, which is a big city for me, right? It was my first time living in a big city and doing so alone. And I learned new lessons socially. I got acquainted with what it was like to live in a big city. And I also found my passion for media and entertainment, which ultimately has become a big part of my career. So being at USC, which is one of the premier schools for that, really helped. So no regrets.
Okay. So now that we are onto the career side, so you started with a major at SOCA as international studies. Then you shifted to USC as a major in international relations. So
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned about film, arts, and media. So how did you transition to this different field, and like, has it anyhow helped? And is there any correlation between the two different sides of like your career?
Yes. So first, I should explain what I do now. So there are two worlds that I occupy. One world is media consulting. So I work with the main studios like Sony Pictures, Disney, whoever, Amazon, and they will bring me in for a year or two at a time, and I will help them develop a streaming app or new features on the streaming app, help them take their apps and websites to new markets, such as international markets, places like Japan or Mexico, Australia, those kinds of things, and help them build their teams, right? So program management, that sort of thing. So for the audiences that watch your show, some of the titles that they might recognize are things like product manager, program manager, project manager, digital strategist. So I've occupied those kinds of roles. So that's one world that I live in, right? The second world is actually making films myself or content, right? That was where my career started. And because of health reasons, it's been a very slow journey in getting it up and running. But I've had the opportunity to produce for companies like National Geographic. The most recent one that I did was for Google. I finished a documentary about refugee athletes. And the reason I want to do this is because it talks about really big, important issues that we as people need to start addressing and exploring, but it does so through individual characters. You fall in love with a character, you get to know a human being at their level, whether it's in a documentary or in a scripted project. And hopefully it helps you understand their world. Hopefully it helps you understand the challenges that they might go through. It helps you be compassionate towards them. And so having gotten an international relations degree, one may ask, well, don't you need to learn some filmmaking? Don't you need to learn some content production skills in order to do that? And I did. Much of that was a combination of classes and self-taught. But what international relations taught me was a framework for how to think about global issues. I had professors who were focused on things like environmental crises, human migration, espionage, intelligence, global trade, statecraft, right? And when you watch these films, you watch even something as popular as a James Bond film, or you watch, the Marvel movies, or you watch like the Jason Bourne series. All of these topics are present. Even Dune, for that matter, has topics of environmental conservation built in. And so, having gotten that education, I learned to develop opinions about each of these topics at an early stage, guided by professors. It helped me be a little bit more literate about how I consume news, how I consume information. I had professors who would have us actually bring in articles from all over the world and start to critically look at whether they were telling the truth, whether they were biased, whether they were presenting a balanced point of view, how the system of journalism works, how journalism is monetized, all these kinds of things, to understand the motives of how information flows and what kind of money is involved in the business of information. And so all of this has helped me become a better documentary producer.
Okay. So, you explored a lot of fields or avenues like swimming, international relations or international studies, and film, media, and art. So, do you think that all the experiences and learnings really add up and help you right now? Over the experiences that you have gathered over the years, do you think that really helps you right now?
Absolutely. Swimming, being an athlete of any kind, especially with the guidance of a good coach and good friends on the team, teaches you so many things, right? How to work hard with a team, to push each other, to encourage each other, how to have healthy respect for a guide, such as a coach, how to disagree with your guide and have a respectful conversation from time to time. It taught me what hard work feels like. That is a sensation that I wish more people knew, if I'm being honest. And so to know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, meaning working with someone who has created so many athletes, world-class athletes, I knew that the hard work was not a waste of my time, right? I knew that I'm learning a way to work hard that is effective, that has a meaning. So that side, certainly swimming has helped tremendously. The opportunity to be an international athlete, being an Olympian or going to world championships, has just opened my eyes to new ways of thinking. Every place that you go, you're learning a new culture, you're learning a new way of seeing the world. And also you make friends through your teammates every single time you go somewhere new. Some of those are some of my best friends now, right? And so wonderful lessons, but also wonderful lifelong relationships that have come from the opportunity to be an international swimmer. And then, of course, professionally, one topic we didn't touch on in our conversation here, but I initially wanted to go into intelligence. I was planning to either work for the CIA or some other international intelligence agency. Ultimately, I chose film because I thought that being in intelligence would be a very lonely path, very isolated path, a very high-risk path. And I wasn't sure if that was the kind of risk that I wanted to take with my life. But beyond that, having gotten an international relations degree, working in international business in so many ways, I still get to touch a lot of the topics that I would on the intelligence side, right? I get to talk about international issues. So the three have a lot of overlap. I find, and I'm sure you will find if, the people who are viewing this, if you go through the roster of athletes who have represented India, especially in swimming, many of them are international scholars. Many of them do work abroad or work in international business. And I think having been part of an international team actually helped them get there.
So any parting thought before we sign off today?
Parting thoughts. Belief is incredibly important. No matter where you are in the world, you may feel that, your resources are low or that you may not know how to do something, but we live in a more connected world than we ever have. There are more resources at your disposal, at your fingertips than ever before. And so if you really truly want to do something, if you really truly think that there's a possibility that would make a meaningful impact in your life, or that you would be able to make your mark in a way that you think is meaningful, I would recommend going for it. This lifetime is very short, and you never want to regret at least giving it a shot. Give it 100%.
Okay. It was great talking to you. Thank you. I appreciate your time taking up this.
No worries. Real pleasure talking with you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
All right. See you later.